Alexander the Great is remembered as one of the most powerful and successful leaders in all of history. He lived more than 2,000 years ago, yet his name is still known around the world. People admire him for his bravery, his intelligence, and his ability to lead armies to victory again and again. In only a short lifetime of 32 years, he created one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. His empire stretched from Greece to Egypt to India, covering thousands of miles. This biography explains his life in simple English and shows how he became such a famous and important figure. Alexander was born in 356 BCE in the city of Pella, which was the capital of the ancient kingdom of Macedon in northern Greece. His father was King Philip II, a strong and ambitious ruler. Philip wanted to unite all the Greek city-states under his power, and he spent many years improving his army and building alliances. Alexander's mother was Queen Olympias, a princess from a neighboring region called Epirus. She was known for her deep religious beliefs and her strong personality. Because both of his parents were powerful and determined people, Alexander grew up in an environment filled with high expectations. His parents believed he was destined for greatness, and from an early age he began to think the same. Even as a child, Alexander showed many qualities that would later make him famous. He was curious, confident, and eager to learn. He enjoyed hearing stories about legendary heroes and ancient battles. His mother told him many tales from Greek mythology, especially stories about Achilles, the great warrior from Homer's Iliad. She encouraged Alexander to see Achilles as a model of courage and strength. This early influence inspired Alexander to dream of doing great things. One well-known story from his childhood describes how he tamed a wild horse named Bucephalus when he was only 12 years old. The horse was so fierce that no one else could control it, but Alexander noticed that the animal was simply frightened by its own shadow. He turned the horse toward the sun so it would no longer see the shadow, and then he climbed onto its back. His father was amazed and told him that he would need a kingdom far larger than Macedon to match his talents. When Alexander was 13 years old, his father wanted him to have the best possible education, so he hired the famous philosopher Aristotle to be his tutor. Aristotle was one of the greatest thinkers in ancient history, and he taught Alexander for several years. During this time, Alexander studied philosophy, science, medicine, literature, and geography. He learned about plants, animals, and the natural world. Aristotle also introduced him to Greek culture, poetry, and ideas about how people should live. Alexander became especially interested in the works of Homer, and the Iliad became one of his favorite books. These lessons helped shape his thinking and gave him a deep appreciation for knowledge. Alexander learned not just how to rule, but also how to understand different cultures and how to solve problems with reason. While Alexander was being educated, he also learned about war from his father. King Philip II was a brilliant military leader who transformed the Macedonian army into a powerful force. He created a new type of battle formation called the phalanx, where soldiers stood close together with long spears. Alexander watched his father plan battles, train soldiers, and create strategies. He sometimes joined military campaigns, and by the time he was a teenager, he already had experience leading troops. At the age of 18, Alexander helped lead part of the army at the Battle of Chaeronea, where the Macedonians defeated several Greek city-states. His courage and skill impressed the soldiers and showed that he was ready for leadership. However, Alexander's relationship with his father was not always peaceful. Philip married other women and had other children, which created tension about who would be the next king. Alexander was also very close to his mother, who did not get along well with Philip. Sometimes these family conflicts made Alexander feel uncertain about his future. Even so, he admired his father's abilities and recognized how much he learned from him. In 336 BCE, when Alexander was 20 years old, King Philip II was assassinated during a celebration. Philip's death shocked the kingdom and created confusion about who should rule next. Alexander acted quickly to claim the throne. Some people challenged his right to rule, but he moved decisively to secure his position. He punished those involved in his father's murder, and he made sure the army and the Macedonian nobles supported him. His strong response showed that he was ready to lead, even at a young age. Shortly after becoming king, Alexander faced rebellions from several Greek cities that believed he might be weak because of his age. The most serious revolt came from the city of Thebes. Instead of negotiating, Alexander marched his army to Thebes and destroyed the city as a warning to others. This harsh action shocked Greece but convinced all the other city-states to accept his authority. Soon Alexander was recognized as the head of the Greek alliance, just as his father had been before him. Philip II had planned to conquer the Persian Empire, which at the time was the largest empire in the world. It stretched across the Middle East from Egypt to India. After Philip's death, Alexander decided to continue his father's dream. In 334 BCE, he crossed a narrow stretch of water called the Hellespont with an army of about 40,000 soldiers. He was only 22 years old, but he was determined to create a new empire. This marked the beginning of his historic campaigns. Alexander's first major victory came at the Battle of the Granicus River, where he defeated Persian forces in Asia Minor. After this success, he continued south, capturing cities along the coast. One interesting event during this time happened in the city of Gordium, where Alexander encountered a famous knot tied so tightly that no one could undo it. According to legend, whoever untied the knot would become ruler of all Asia. When Alexander could not find a way to untie it, he simply cut through it with his sword. This bold action symbolized his belief that he could overcome obstacles in unusual ways. In 333 BCE, Alexander met the Persian king, Darius III, at the Battle of Issus. Although Darius had a much larger army, Alexander won the battle using clever tactics. Darius fled the battlefield, leaving behind his mother, wife, and children. Alexander treated the Persian royal family with great respect, which improved his reputation. Many people began to believe that he was not only a strong warrior but also a fair and honorable ruler. After defeating Darius at Issus, Alexander continued his campaign toward the eastern Mediterranean. One of his most difficult challenges was the city of Tyre, which stood on an island not far from the coast. Tyre was heavily defended, and its people believed Alexander could not reach them. However, Alexander ordered his engineers to build a long causeway across the water so his army could attack the island. This impressive construction project took months, but in the end, Alexander captured Tyre. His determination and creativity astonished both his allies and his enemies. From Tyre, Alexander marched into Egypt, where he was welcomed as a liberator. The Egyptians disliked Persian rule and saw Alexander as a hero. In Egypt, he founded the city of Alexandria, which later became one of the most important centers of culture, science, and learning in the ancient world. He also visited the Oracle of Siwa, where priests told him he was favored by the gods. Some accounts say they even called him the son of Zeus. Whether or not he truly believed it, this strengthened his sense of destiny. In 331 BCE, Alexander faced Darius once again in the Battle of Gaugamela, one of the most famous battles in history. Darius prepared a huge army and chose a flat field where his chariots could move easily. However, Alexander used brilliant strategy to break through the Persian lines. Even though the Persians greatly outnumbered the Macedonians, Alexander won a clear and decisive victory. Darius fled again, but this time he lost control of his empire. Soon after, he was killed by his own men. With Darius gone, Alexander became the new ruler of the Persian Empire. Alexander entered the great cities of Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis, where he gained enormous wealth. In Persepolis, parts of the city were destroyed by fire, an event that is still debated today. Some believe Alexander ordered the burning as revenge for earlier Persian attacks on Greece. Others think it may have been an accident or a moment of drunken celebration. Whatever the cause, it marked a dramatic moment in his conquest. Even after taking control of Persia, Alexander did not stop. He wanted to explore further east and conquer even more lands. He led his army into Central Asia, where he faced difficult terrain, harsh climates, and strong resistance from local people. These campaigns were long and tiring. To strengthen his control, Alexander founded new cities and encouraged his soldiers to marry local women. He himself married Roxana, a noblewoman from Bactria. This helped him gain support, but it also caused tension among some of his men who felt he was adopting too many foreign customs. Eventually, Alexander reached the borders of India. In 326 BCE, he fought the Battle of the Hydaspes River against King Porus, a brave and skilled ruler. The battle was tough, and the Indian army used elephants, which were frightening and unfamiliar to the Macedonians. However, Alexander won the battle. Impressed by Porus's courage, he allowed him to continue ruling as a local king under Alexander's authority. This showed that Alexander respected strength and loyalty even in his enemies. Although Alexander wanted to travel deeper into India, his soldiers were exhausted. They had been marching and fighting for many years and they missed their homes. They refused to continue. Alexander was disappointed, but he listened to them and agreed to return. The journey back was very hard. At one point, Alexander led part of his army through a hot and dangerous desert where many soldiers died from heat and lack of water. This decision damaged his relationship with his men, but he pushed forward. In 323 BCE, Alexander returned to the city of Babylon, where he began planning new campaigns, possibly to conquer Arabia. However, he never had the chance to begin these plans. In June of that year, he developed a fever after a large banquet. Over the next several days, his condition worsened and he became very weak. On June 10th or 11th, Alexander died at the age of 32. The exact cause of his death is still unknown, and many theories exist, including illness, infection, or poisoning, although poisoning is considered unlikely by most historians. After Alexander's death, his empire quickly fell apart because he had no clear heir. His wife Roxana gave birth to a son, but he was too young to rule. Alexander's generals fought among themselves, each trying to take control. Eventually, the empire was divided into several smaller kingdoms ruled by his former commanders. Although the empire did not survive as a single unit, Alexander's influence remained powerful. Alexander's legacy is enormous. One of his most lasting achievements was the spread of Greek culture across the lands he conquered. This period, known as the Hellenistic Age, mixed Greek ideas with local traditions. Greek became a common language for government, trade, and learning. Cities founded by Alexander became important centers of culture and science. His military successes also influenced later leaders such as Julius Caesar and Napoleon, who admired his skills and tried to learn from his example. Alexander was not a perfect leader. He could be impulsive, stubborn, and sometimes cruel. During his later years, he became suspicious of those around him and occasionally acted harshly, even toward close friends. Yet his strengths were extraordinary. He was brave, intelligent, and inspiring. He shared hardships with his soldiers, remembered their names, and rewarded their loyalty. His ability to plan battles, take risks, and adapt to new challenges made him one of the greatest commanders in history. Today, Alexander the Great is still studied and admired. His life raises many questions about leadership, ambition, culture, and the impact one person can have on the world. His achievements were remarkable, especially considering how young he was when he died. He changed the shape of history, connected distant cultures, and created a legacy that lasted long after his empire disappeared.